Hello.
Welcome to episode 8 of our Renegade podcast.
That's correct.
I'm God.
That's good job.
Thank
Off
you.
to a great start. We know what we're recording. I am Allie.
I'm Julie. Hi.
And this is our first episode for the month of August. And since we like to do a little bit of a theme for each month, our theme this month is wine in the wild. So think things that are kind of like earthy, grounded, intuitive, kind of stripped down to essentials, basically the natural world in your glass. So that means that this month we're going to be featuring and talking about things like natural and minimal intervention wines. We're going to talk about field blends, earthier reds, some kind of wild whites, and then of course volcanic wines, which is the topic for today's episode. And this is a topic that I have wanted to do. This has been on my list since before we rebranded to Blackthorn. Like this has been on my list forever. I love volcanic wines. They're some of my favorites, and I'm excited.
Yeah, because
to talk about them today.
We've done a whole thing on island wines that are all volcanic.
We did island wines. They happened to be. Were they all volcanic?
Yes, they were, because I'm going to list them off later.
Okay. So that is common, but yeah.
Speaking of wine,
I have wine, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great to drink some. I don't know if you see this beautiful bottle behind us. Please pour me wine. It hasn't really been a long day. It's like the middle of the day, but I could use some wine. We could always use some wine.
So
what am I drinking?
let me pour it and I'll tell you.
It's pretty.
Okay, so for our volcanic wines episode, I am choosing to feature, this is a 2021 Donna Fugata Sul Volcano Etna Bianco. So
that's a lot of words.
Yes, we'll break it down. We think every wine tells a story. That's part of what we're trying to do here with what we're creating with Blackthorn and how we want to talk about wines. But there are definitely some that are a little bit more direct than others. And for this one, the story is kind of right in the name. So Sul Volcano is the name of this wine on the volcano. Pretty on the nose.
Yeah, got that.
I had to get it. And then to break down more of that long name I listed out, this bottle comes from Donna Fugata, which is a winery. It's one of Sicily's most iconic wineries. So it's a family-run estate that has helped put modern Sicilian wine on the global map while still staying really deeply rooted in the island's identity. And the name Donna Fugata, which is one word, means woman in flight. And it comes from this old legend about a queen who fled across Sicily. It's used as like a symbol of freedom and movement and like feminine strengths. And their labels are all like really famously like illustrative and very expressive. So this one's no different. It's this like,
it's really pretty
red-haired like woman who kind of rises from like the flames and the lava of the volcano
at the bottom. I didn't really see that in the corner. That's kind of cool.
So a nod to the mythic energy of Mount Etna, which is the volcano in question for this volcanic wine on Sicily. So this is called an Etna Bianco. A lot of times you'll see like Etna Rosa or Etna Bianco for the wines of this area. So it's a white wine that's grown on the north slopes of the volcano. And this is actually primarily made from the Caricante grape, which is a variety you're not going to see much outside of Sicily and actually just outside of this like Etna region. And honestly, that's kind of the point. So it's like very, very indigenous to this specific area. It's been grown on these slopes for centuries. It's a really late ripening grape. But it's really high acid, which is two things that don't normally go in common. It's got a lot of
texture to it though.
Yeah. I haven't tried this yet, but I have had other bottlings of Caricante on their own. So it really, really thrives. This grape in particular thrives in these like cooler, higher elevation sites, especially in volcanic soils, where it can really like stretch out, show off this like mineral backbone that it's got. So it's interesting. It's complex. It's very kind of like a precise, like linear driven grape. Oftentimes it's described as like Chablis like, but with like a Sicilian heartbeat. So again, this is the 2021 vintage. Their tasting notes, are that it's really bright and focused with notes of lemon peel, green apple, mountain herbs, and just the faintest touch of like flint or smoke. So like someone lit their ritual candle in their little citrus grove.
As in what we just did a few minutes ago.
We did.
We
it
started
does
this
smell
one.
a little flinty in here.
No, but the wine itself, that was one of my first impressions when I
yeah.
actually like drank it. I got that little hint of like flint.
Yeah. Tell me, you've been tasting it, so why don't you tell me what it tastes like and I can drink some.
I definitely like get a lot of those like green apple kind of like bright acid. It has a nice textured finish, so it does remind me a little bit of a Chablis. It's got that mineral driven character. I get a lot of my first sip. I definitely got a hint of like that flint or smoke, but also like it's got a natural wine tinge to it. Like it has the feel of like that really kind of like pop rocky acid, like when you first drink it.
I think that's the grape.
Yeah, I think
a lot of it's the grape. A lot of it's that volcanic soil. It really has that like minerality to it. This one was like a little bit of a splurge. It's not really expensive, but this was more like $32, $35.
How dare you?
A bottle. And there was some other options that I was looking at from different places that looked really interesting, but they really talked me into this one. Then I liked the label, and then I was like, it's called On the Volcano. We're doing a podcast on volcanic wines. Like, I just have to do it.
And the feminine energy and all the things.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have to say.
And she was just really talking it up.
You're like, I've had other Cara Conte. I was like, I have not. So this is my first one.
Okay, well.
I've never had a wine from Etna. So that's, well, you're more like into the Italian stuff than I am.
I do. I'm very into Italian. Yeah. But yeah, I think this is really fun. It's very like clean. There's a lot of texture to it though. There's a lot of minerality. Like it's not just like a mindless like summer. Like it's really zippy and high acid. So it's nice for that like warmer weather, but it's not just like, it's got a lot going on too. It's not just like purely easy drinking, which is fine. But this has like stuff to think about.
I mean, I think it's cool because you can sit and because it has both like bright acid and texture, you can kind of sit with it for a while.
Yeah.
And drink it. And, you know, like you don't have to overanalyze wine when you're drinking, but it is nice to be a little bit more thoughtful about it. And I think a wine like this, not just because it has a lot of in common with what we're talking about, gives you an opportunity to maybe just be a little bit more mindful. Like sometimes wine is nice to be like, oh, what does this taste like? And it's not about getting tasty notes or getting it right. It's about like the feeling of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will wrap up my little wine section and then you can tell us all about volcanic wines in general by just going over a few different like potential pairings for this wine. So we'll start with like a food pairing section. Etna Bianco wines in general are really natural with anything from the sea. So dishes that have like a little salt, a little acid, maybe a little herbalness to them. So like grilled shrimp with lemon, swordfish or with capers, like pastas with olive oil and like garlic and anchovy, like really simple things, but very like that like briny, salty quality to them go really well with this. It also is really good with like roasted vegetables. Something like goat cheese would be really good with this, I think, or like an herby like chicken dish. And then since we are at Blackthorn, we also like to do like just mood pairings in general. So for this one, I said this is a wine for clear skies and sharp thoughts. This is for like solo journaling in the late afternoon light. This is for planning your next rebellion. It pairs beautifully with introspection or with seafood on a rocky cliff if you have one of those handy. So however you want to pair this is just one expression of what volcanic wines can be, because Mount Etna is not the only volcano that is shaping wine. These soils, like the eruption, the tension, like all that stuff, they show up in vineyards all over the world. So there's like ancient Greek isles to the cliffs of the Canary Islands. You can find these soils from like Italy to Oregon. There are some that are like still very simmering active calderas, and like other ones that are long cooled but are still like feeding these vines. And I think that's really what makes volcanic wine so interesting. So let's dig into that.
Oh, okay, I can do that.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so I was excited because some, like, again, like you said, volcanic soils, so when you grow wine there, are very unique unto themselves. So so the region's kind of like in directly range of a magmatic eruption. So like meaning like either is happening or has happened. So the soil is there after it's cooled, is filled with remnants of volcanic explosions from like the past. But they all share something in common. It's the potential to grow some of the most mineral-laden and distinct wines on Earth. that's what we say when we say volcanic soil. Volcanic composition is a lot of the same elements. So no matter whether that volcano is erupting on an island in the Mediterranean or if it's erupting on the west coast of California,
right,
or Oregon or Washington, they all have like the same composition in common, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and though like volcanic wines represent only 1% of the total surface area of the planet, so our volcanic Earth represents only 1% of the total surface area of the planet. The grapes are grown on soil are like really vast and varied. Because you mentioned like the Caricante like is specifically pretty much just grown in Sicily. So that's
Sicily, and in this like particular part of Sicily too, not even like all throughout the island.
So this is a quote. What surprised me most was the number of indigenous grapes, true regional specialties that have been preserved in volcanic terroirs, says Master Sommelier John Szabo. Sure.
Yeah.
The wine business expert and volcanist. So he puts study into this. So he recently published a book called Volcanic Wine, Salt, Grit, and Power after a decade's worth of reconnaissance.
I think I was just talking to Steve about that.
Okay.
When I bought this wine, he's like, I have a book. And he's like, but I left it at home. But he's like, it's like just called Volcanic Wine or something. And he's like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I that book.
Immediately want to
and I was like, oh, you must look that up.
So when I was reading about it, I like it reminds me of that book, that cookbook, like Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It's like salt, grit, and power. Like it's really interesting that he did like again over 10 years worth of study of both volcanoes, but of volcanoes and wine that grows in those regions. I mean, that'd be an awesome job.
Yeah. Just a volcanologist.
Yeah.
And
they're like
a wine nerd.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I'm into it. I could learn about volcanoes. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
You could. Geologist. We had a friend who was pretty, well, she said geology, but she's very into volcanoes.
She was into volcanoes.
Living on Hawaii.
That is true. So volcanic includes everything from lava in all of its forms, like jet black basalts and other fragments expelled from the volcano's vent, so the little top, boop, and all the way to the pumice and volcanic alluvium, which is a deposit of clay, silt, sand, and gravel left by the flowing streams in a river, valley, or delta, typically producing a fertile soil.
Yeah.
There are different types of alluvial soils, but this particular one is it's derived from like the volcano itself, and it settles down into the valleys, which makes sense because it's a mountain usually erupting and then everything goes down. Yeah. They're often remote and rugged terrains where it's the soils found act as kind of like nature's preservation policy. So it's forcing work to be done by hand. You can't mechanize these vineyards. They're not only difficult to get to, but like the way that you need to plant them, you're not going to have big trucks rolling through there or a bunch of machines. It's like a lot of tender care. So all of these kind of small things result in really unique wines. So like the soils are formed from lava ash, in part kind of like this unique characteristics to the wine. Again, we're talking about minerality, acidity, and in this case, complex flavors and texture, which is really interesting. And you said that probably comes from the grape, but I feel like...
I mean, I think it's both.
Yeah.
I've also, again, this grape, the only other time I've had this grape, it was also from Sicily, from Etna. So it's like, how much of it is the grape? How much of it is the area? I don't know. It really only grows there.
Yeah. So there's
for
not
the most
really
part.
a way to like...
And it might grow. I don't know. If it's grows somewhere else, I haven't tried it from there. So I don't know.
Well, you've tried several apparently.
Well, I think I know I've had one for sure, but
so they're really rich in minerals like potassium, magnesium, and iron, which can influence the flavor and the structure of wine. So the porous nature of the soil provides excellent drainage, just forcing the wines to work harder and concentrate the flavors in the grapes. It's one of the things that you want when you're growing wine. They also they do have that distinct mineral character, but they are often described, as you mentioned earlier, as salty, smoky, or flinty. The soil's poor water retention leads to higher acidity in the grapes and kind of makes that freshness happen and gives it a lot of potential. For the end part of my section, I'm just going to go over some cool spots where you can see examples of these wine regions. So they're all over the world. Mount Etna in Sicily. So this is known for its Nerello Mascalese based reds, and the Caricante based whites. Etna wines are renowned for their minerality and finesse. Santorini, Greece.
Mm-hmm.
The Sertico grape thrives on Santorini's volcanic soil, producing wines with bracing acidity. And yeah, these are a little bit more, they're like a little bit higher in acid than even this wine that we're having today. A lot of citrus, and they do get a lot of that smoky flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Suave, Italy. The Garganega grape. I can't pronounce that one. I always fuck it up.
Garganega.
Thank you. Suave yields like elegant whites with like floral aromatics, a lot of saline notes, and has a mineral backbone. The one that I was most interested in, I read about this place in Hungary called Lakeside to Royal Hills.
Okay.
So there may not be a volcano right in sight, but much of Hungary's topography is the result of a robust volcanic activity. So it's north of the Lake Balaton. It's phalanx of basalt columns called, I don't know how to say that, Hegi, or Semio Hill. It's an isolated basalt bedrock formation that rises 17 feet. So it's been growing grapes for over 2,000 years. The vines have like a lot of very powerful wines from like white Drufark grape, which is white ferment grape, creating cuvées that are compact, savory, herbal, and full of textural grip. So in this case, the bedrock is the volcanic activity that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that kind of forms this entire valley where they grow these grapes.
Yeah. And I know you have a couple more places that are really cool to talk about that are these like islands. And like when we did our islands class, because it's an island and like volcanoes formed islands, so it makes sense that like that's where a lot of concentrated is. But I also think something that's cool about volcanic wines, and if you look more into it, obviously it's more in depth than we can get to in this like one episode, but there are volcanic soils, like just because like there are places like Etna and these, and like, you know, the places you're going to go over now where it's like, you're like, oh, I could like see the volcano. It's like happening or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there are like spots in Oregon, and there are places in Sonoma that like have these like volcanic soils from like ancient volcanoes that aren't necessarily like a thing that you look at now and go, oh, that's a volcano.
No, yeah, that was like, that's why I thought it was cool.
But it's still impacting the wine, like that place in Hungary. And I think that's really cool. And that's why I want to find that book, because that's what Steve was talking about. Because I was like, I need a volcanic wine and like maybe a white, and here's what I'm thinking. But it's like, it's so much different than just being like, oh, go to Etna or go to but like there's so many options when you say that.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that as well. I thought when I found that quote, I was like, I have to include this just because it's interesting that someone did take all that time to really like explain this.
I want to find that book.
So last two spots we got here, Lanzarote, Canary Islands. So grapes grown on volcanic vineyards of Lanzarote produce wines with unique character influenced by the island's volcanic landscape. This one is very volcanic, as in like you can see volcanic rock. Yeah. It's not quite as like a valley of bedrock like
the landscape of the Canary Islands is bananas. It looks otherworldly.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. We did a class where we talked about the Canary Islands, and like I remember the pictures were just kind of, they were like vines growing and like almost like it looked like the moon. I don't know how to describe it. So in Pico Azores, the island of Pico is known for volcanic wines with mineral and saline aromas, great freshness and acidity. So these are all, again, island places, but I did want to mention a few more like mainland places that also contain volcanic wines. So, like I said, you may notice a lot are islands, but that makes a lot of sense. But I can't help imagine taking a trip between all of these islands and drinking all these amazing wines.
Yeah.
And the cool part is I know that we've mentioned a lot of similar tasting notes and similar attributes to the wines grown in these places on these very similar soils, but they are not the same. They're all very good, but they're just very, very distinct as well. You're not going to get a Listan Blanco from like the Canary Islands and have it taste exactly like, you know, this wife from Mount Etna, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, and something else you said at the beginning was that a lot of these volcanic soils have helped to preserve these like really ancient and indigenous grapes. So it's like, yes, they all volcanic soils pretty much share the same like compounds or like chemicals and things like that that's in them. So they're
Yeah.
the same no matter where they are, whether you're in like Oregon or the Canary Islands or whatever. But the grapes that are growing in those regions are different. And so you're getting different characteristics that way. And they're like very like indigenous to that place because it's such a specific environment too. I think that's really cool.
Okay, so you're going to tell me a story.
I am going to tell you a story, and we are going to stay in Sicily. I picked my story before I picked my wine. And I was actually trying to like find a different wine, but then she really talked me into this one, and I'm glad she did because it's delicious. So we're going to bookend this episode with Sicily and specifically Mount Etna. And I'm going to tell you the story of Salvo Foti and the I Vinieri. So, Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean. It's also been long fought over and deeply layered. So it's a crossroads of cultures, languages, and empires. But on its eastern edge, the landscape shifts. The hills turn back, the soils become ash, and dominating the horizon is Etna, which is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. And I have actually never been to Sicily, but I did sail past it on a boat, and Etna was erupting, and it was very cool to watch.
I've only seen a volcano from Java.
Java?
Yeah, in like Indonesia.
Oh.
I saw one erupting. That was kind of crazy. It was across the water as well.
Yeah.
It's like...
It was like at night, like as the boat was going by. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. Yeah.
We have that little volcano by the Coat Branch that goes off sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a few years ago that
it goes off pretty constantly, actually. Anyway. Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Etna is basically erupting constantly, so not always catastrophic, but very steadily. And her lava flows carve through vineyards and towns alike. Her ash coats everything, and yet somehow people don't flee. They grow grapes. So here, the vineyards that are growing aren't in like orderly rows. They're really kind of scattered up the mountain in these small plots that are called contrade. And basically they're like shaped by these different lava flows throughout history and like places you can actually grow the grapes versus like little bald spots where you like can't really.
Mm-hmm.
The vines dig really deep into the fractured basalt. Some are over 100 years old, and many are trained in the albarello style, which is a bush vine style that looks kind of less like farming and more like sculpture. So this is not the like traditional trellised.
Yeah. That wouldn't be quite as possible.
No, in general, it's not as possible. But so this is just like, it's like head trained is another way to say it, where it's just kind of like a standalone plant that's kind of like has a really hardy stalk, and then like kind of just like the vines kind of grow up and out, and they're all their like own little things sitting on the side of this volcano. And the wines that they produce are unlike anything else. So they're savory, earthy, tense. They don't seduce you, they haunt you. But what makes Etna even more fascinating and what makes her feel kind of different than some of the other volcanic regions is that the people who've chosen to root themselves here. So winemakers who don't just farm the land, they really listen to it. They refuse shortcuts, and they believe that wine should carry a memory, and no one embodies that more than Salvo Foti.
So it's a person?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know. Could be a place.
Salvo Foti is a man.
Okay.
And he isn't just making wine on Etna. He is basically retrieving a forgotten way of life. He's resurrecting an ancient guild, which is the I Vinieri, which we'll get to in a second, and leading a quiet resistance against the industrial wine machine. So if you've ever wondered what it looks like to stand at the edge of the modern world and turn back, this is that story. So a lot of people call him the godfather of Etna wine. But Salvo Foti isn't just a winemaker. He's a steward. He's a revivalist. He's a man who doesn't see vines as commodities, but as ancient messengers rooted in lava and time. So he was born in Sicily. He grew up under the shadow of Mount Etna. And actually in his early years, he worked as like a consultant for a lot of big name producers in the region. Basically, he like was in charge of like figuring out how to make wine that would sell really well, that would like score well, that was kind of like mass marketed commodity wine that would kind of like behave, and ultimately that would make those producers a lot of money. But something about that didn't really sit well with Foti, so he walked away. He left the industry path, and instead he began listening to the land, to the farmers who never stopped farming the old way. and to the stories buried in dry, stacked stone walls and twisted vines. So he didn't want to modernize Etna. He wanted to remember her. And he did something really rare. He reached back 5 centuries into the past and he brought an ancient guild of Sicilian winemakers back to life. So if you visit Mount Etna today, you're still going to find like a very modern wine industry. There are going to be wineries lined with shiny steel tanks. There are going to be people that are chasing like Parker scores, quote unquote, or just like the scoring system in general. They're going to be replanting like international varieties. And when we say that, we mean like Cab, Sauv, Chardonnay, which doesn't mean those are bad grapes, but they're like the popular international grapes as opposed to indigenous grapes. But tucked into the higher slopes and in older parcels of land where the black volcanic stones crumble underfoot, you'll find something different. And that is where you'll find the I Vinieri. And Salvo Fati didn't invent this name. He basically resurrected it. So I Vinieri was originally a guild of wine growers that formed in Catania in 1435. 1435.
Okay.
They were a collection of farmers who worked the land with hand tools, who passed down knowledge through generations, and who treated viticulture as a craft, not a business. And over time, the guild just kind of faded. It was lost to modernization, to mechanization, and like the global wine trade. It just didn't really have a place as the industry modernized. But Foti decided he was going to bring it back. So he brought back not just the name, but the philosophy. And today, I Vinieri is a winemaking project and a movement. They're a small, tight-knit group of growers and craftspeople committed to honoring the old ways. So no chemicals, no tractors, no industrial shortcuts. Instead, they farm by hand. Sometimes they use mules. All their vines are trained in that Albarello traditional style, which requires a lot more meticulous care. It's a form that really like thrives well in that region. But it's more work as well.
Yeah.
They build their terraces from dry stacked lava stones. They harvest when the grapes are ready, not when a consultant says they should be, and they treat the volcano not as an enemy or a threat, but as a partner. Etna is unpredictable. She gives and takes, and as the wines born from her slopes carry that tension, they crackle of ash, they pulse the pulse of the mountain and the memory of something older than words. So I Vinieri isn't about nostalgia. It's about trying to make wine or about making wine in an authentic way that's like for marketing appeal. It's more about devotion. And I want to read you this piece that kind of like summarizes their philosophy. So this is from the I Vinieri website. This was written by Salvo Fati, and it was under a tab on their website that just was called Human Wine. And I was like, what does this mean? And that
is it wine made from humans?
Yes, it's wine made from humans. Soylent Green is people, but this is kind of like all that was under that tab was this like little essay, but it was interesting, and I think it like sums up what they talked about. So I'm gonna read it to you.
Okay.
So it starts with the headline: "Human wine made for mankind, made by mankind for mankind, with respect for mankind and the environment." So he says, vines make grapes. However, this does not occur because mankind makes wine. The plants simply want to reproduce. Consequently, grapes can be a natural product in the sense that a wild vine produces berries, which will be eaten by animals and humans. These seeds are then spread into nature, allowing the plant to reproduce. Mankind, thanks to our intelligence, invented wine as we know it today. Over time, we've improved winemaking techniques and technology in order to control the production, process, and quality. Technology and new approaches are not intrinsically wrong. The question of whether technology is good or bad clearly depends on how we use it. Today, there is an increasing pressure to have what we often call healthy, organic, or natural products. Humanity's banally obvious excesses, championed by money, selfishness, greed, which have quite likely allowed technology to turn into a fundamental part of the production wheel, have unfortunately led many wines to become, unsurprisingly, industrial products that lack any semblance of soul or reason. As a direct result of our farming and agricultural traditions, those lucky enough to have lived these ancient values, as well as a personal, sentimental vision we have of wine, we do not accept the new way of making wine. However, a mistake would also be avoiding the positive aspects that have arisen in modern enology, while also accepting without reflection and criticism everything that comes from the past or that is feared as such and from baseless empiricism. Let's not go from one excess to another. Fundamentalism is most widespread and stupidest mistake that mankind makes, often out of ignorance. Our current knowledge, more than before, allows us today to make thoughtful choices while also minimizing possible negative effects in everything that we do. Changing everything immediately often amounts to not changing anything at all. That the need for healthy, organic, and natural wine, not just wine, is strongly felt. Human wines would be the right word. Is clear as day. Sorry. Organic and biodynamic wine will likely become increasingly popular. However, we must be careful to understand how to discern between truth and the illusion of truth. There are those winemakers who really, I think that means rely.
I think it means rely.
There are those winemakers who really on a daily basis work and try to improve their wines in terms of quality as well as from the point of view of production, ethics, and eco-compatibility. They do so without resorting to catchy names and slogans. These winemakers simply use common sense. Yet there are also those who offer the illusion of a product of an all-natural wine created only by nature without any intervention on the part of man, pushing the misconception that wine is 100% natural. In this case, the words of my professor of analogical chemistry ring loud and true. The best ingredient in a wine will always be the honesty of those who produce it. Salvo Fati. So I think that encapsulated it. He says a lot, but basically this concept of embracing technology and embracing the things that we have and like looking at not everything as like a negative, but also asking why we're doing it that way. Like not just progress for progress's sake kind of thing. And I think maybe in a world, just to bring it back to like the volcano and everything that we're talking about, that kind of feels like it's already burning in all the wrong ways. There's something really sacred about choosing to work with fire instead of running from it. And I think what Salvo Fati and the Vigneri group that he has kind of resurrected are doing on Mount Etna isn't just winemaking. It's a kind of preservation. It's a kind of resistance and a kind of magic that lives not in spells, but in dirt and stone and grape skins pressed by callous hands. And when you drink one of those wines, you're not just tasting fruit or soil, you're tasting a choice to go deeper, to go slower, and to trust the fire. And that's my story.
I think it's really cool that he sounded kind of like crazy, like a little bit in his little manifesto essay thing. But then he wraps it up with like, my professor of chemistry said, I love that the best ingredient in wine will always be the honesty of those who produce it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a direct result of his previous career because the wine industry itself got really lost in all of that. And that's still going on today. But I think it's cool that he went, okay, Sicily's not a big place.
No, it's quite small.
So I like that he's working on it in a project in an authentic way that's also being like, yeah, we put it in a tank or a barrel. Like he's like,
right.
Like don't take it seriously in the way that like you should, but also like don't take it too seriously. Like, just be honest about what you're doing, about what the wine is, and that all translates from like where it's being grown and what he's doing. So I think that's really cool that they like kind of went back and did that. Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting the human wine, like calling it quote unquote human wine in that tab. And one of the reasons I clicked on it is because we just did an episode not long ago. I don't really know when in the grand scheme of things anymore. About wine made from humans. No, we did an episode on Frappato, which is another Sicilian grape, and the story I told in that episode was about Ariana Occhipinti, who is a big winemaker there and definitely someone who's kind of championing that grape in particular, and she's in a different part of the island. But when I was talking about her philosophy and reading about her philosophy, she doesn't like to be labeled as like a natural winemaker or a biodynamic winemaker. She says she wants to make quote human wines.
Yeah, she did say that. And
this is also in Sicily. I don't know if she's part of the Vigneri. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but I've listened to and watched that episode more times than I.
Well, I haven't, but I did write it, and so I was like, oh, I wonder if this is connected. And I couldn't figure out if she's like in the group, but I thought that was interesting, like as a thread through both of those things, and also like a concept that even if they're not in the same group is like somehow pervasive in Sicilian winemakers.
We'll have to go ask.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.